Hey everybody, welcome into Guerilla Sports Off Ice. JJ Jerez, Jesse Montano, Meghan Angley with me as always here as we continue to break down training camp. The first session of day 3 has been completed. We're of course in between the two sessions right now getting this one in, mainly because it was a different look today in camp. They kind of reorganized the groups a little bit, moved some players around, shuffled it, and then I feel like the first session had a much different feel to it, right? A little bit more of game-like situations, even saw a shootout there. And yeah, I guess let's just get into the different look of Group 1 today and today's first ice session.
Well, I'll start. Is it all right if I start? I just realized I jumped on that super rude. When the rosters came out this morning, there was kind of this immediate like, okay, this feels a little intentional. This feels like some clear separation just when you purely looked at the names. And that really was kind of what we found out was by Ryan Bolding of NHL.com. That's what it was. There was a group of guys today that they felt were ready to start ramping things up a bit and get into some more game-like situations. And then there was a group that they feel still needs a little bit more time systems-wise to get there. And I thought we learned a lot about what the organization was thinking purely based on who was in that first group.
Jared Bednar even said for the second session that's happening right now, these are guys that he's identified might need a little bit more learning. And I don't think that's a knock at anybody. There are some guys that are newer to the Avs organization and system, and so there is a lot more teaching that needs to happen. But I also think there is a stark separation that was created today because some of those former Group 2s did move into that Group 1 for the scrimmage this morning, and I think it is revealing about how the organization feels about their NHL hopeful opportunity. You know, I tweeted out, you could probably expect these are the NHL hopefuls, and some people found that a little controversial because TJ Tynan's in the group from the scrimmage this morning and Ivan's in there, but I don't think that we should write off any of the guys that made that transition from Group 2 into Group 1 from today. But there are guys who definitely stood out as front of the line for the roster battle that's happening right now.
Well, and then not even just who was put from Group 2 to Group 1 like you pointed out, but where they fell on some of those lines as well and who they were skating with. And also, if anyone was giving you a hard time about TJ Tynan, that dude got a ton of games the last time he was with the Avs. Like, he got called up a bunch.
He's a prolific American League scorer. You have to give that a look. You know, it's not saying he's guaranteed any sort of NHL job. There are limitations to TJ Tynan that we already know. We're familiar with him and what he's been doing in the American League lately. But to leave one of the league-leading scorers from the American League out of that conversation would also be silly.
Like several years in a row, too. Like,
yes.
He's always at the top of the league.
He's been a thorn in the Eagles' side.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, as a veteran on this team, it has to get a little bit exhausting continuously talking about the system and the structure when you've got it down. You know it. You've been doing it for years. Maybe there's some in-betweeners, right? Like the guys that came in last year that maybe still need a bit of tweaking, need a bit of catching up on the system, reminding. But I don't see it being so complex for these guys that they have to just get it drilled into their brain day after day after day. So to see a little bit of a game-like situations, maybe a little bit more loose of a practice too, right? The guys in the locker room had a more of a loose energy to them, a lot more in a good mood today. So
can I just real quick, Megan? I want to ask you because you just you watch a lot more AHL than we do, but when I watch AHL, it's so much more chaotic, and it's not as clean, it's not as polished. You know, JJ and I were talking when we were walking up here about what he was just saying. Like, do we really need that much time? Like, is Jared Bednar's system that much more complex? Guys coming from the American League, ECHL, like, in your opinion, is it that much more complex? And obviously they try to teach the system to the Colorado Eagles guys as well, so it is an easier transition. But like I said, to my eye, when I watch American League hockey, it's, like I said, it's just a lot more chaotic. Do you think it's a much more significant maybe jump than we give it credit for at times, systems-wise?
I think coming from an outside American League organization, it would be, and it's because of how closely the Eagles mirror the Avs systems that I think there is an advantage. But to your point, very little hockey is 5v5 in the American League. It's a lot of special teams. And so they're really dialed into the way that the Avs execute on special teams. But that 5v5 play, some of those defensive details, for example, can get a little muddied in the American League. And so I do think that there is some necessary fine-tuning then when they come into this setting that needs to happen for guys who maybe aren't up with the NHL team as regularly or new to the Avs organization from another pro team before this.
I just wanted to get your take on that.
No, it's a valid point. American League is squirrely.
Yeah, it's messy.
Well, and also with the guys that come into town, they need a second, right? It's not just pop back in, okay, I'm caught up with the systems now, I'm executing to a T. They need a few months. Jonathan Drouin pointed out how it took him until about December to really get a grasp on the structure and on the systems till he started really producing the points that he was comfortable with. So there's obviously another level to Jared Bednar's mastery. Yeah.
Right.
Some of the fringy guys, too, who made it from Group 2 into Group 1 have familiarity with the organization, like TJ Tynan and Callie Rosen. And so I think that was what gave them an advantage in getting able to move over from one to the next.
I think another notable was Cal Ritchie skating with Casey Middlestat and Oscar Olausen. What do you guys read into that, if anything? I think it's good to see Casey Middlestat, who we know is going to be a surefire NHLer, skating with two guys that are maybe more on the fringe.
What do you think?
So I liked seeing Cal Ritchie in this setting most of any that I've seen so far. What I liked is his calm under pressure. You know, the board battles in a game situation allowed us to see his decision making in real time, and he displayed a calm under pressure and didn't necessarily make the most panicked decisions. But what was also revealed was how he kept up with the Avs pace, and I felt that Middlestat was a perfect driver for this line because the way that Casey Middlestat drives pace is very intense, and he's also such a complimentary teammate in being able to find his guys easily that he helped to lean into Cal Ritchie's playmaking a little bit more. But you could see that's where Cal Ritchie maybe looks a step behind some of his peers in this setting is in terms of pace. You can see that there's still a little bit of an adjustment happening there, but I felt it was important to get him with an experienced player like Middlestat because we've only seen him with Olausen and Foudy through this point. I also like to see him against NHL talent in that setting as well. That's where I felt the pressure that's being applied is also pretty elite pressure. You know, we were talking about this the other day, how some of his playmaking from juniors doesn't translate here because he's facing NHL defenders. And that's what I think I'm finding. Like, you see the vision happening on the ice, but he's not always able to find those seams that he could find in juniors. And I think that's still true, and why I still find myself feeling like I need to see a little more of Ritchie.
Yeah, but you liked his day today better than the other two?
Yes, he showed maturity in his calm under pressure in some of those board battles, and I like that he didn't make panic decisions.
Well, and there were two times, Megan, because they ran through some drills and some more controlled, 5-on-5 stuff before they went into the full scrimmage, and there was twice where he made plays that caught your and I's attention, and then we went, that was Cal. So again, it was like, that's what I always get excited about at camps like this, is when someone does something that catches your attention and then you realize who it is, because we can get caught up sometimes with the confirmation bias of some of this stuff, I think. But so, no, I agree with you. I thought Ritchie was really good. The other part I thought was significant, or not, I'm not necessarily know if it's significant, but I thought was interesting, was that he was taking face-offs on the right side. Him and Casey were switching. And that's, we hear a lot about how centers can adjust to the strength and the speed of NHL players, in the dot in particular. And I thought that was interesting that they put him on the wing today, on Casey Middlestat's wing, but they did not completely abandon putting him in the middle depending on the situation. And I just thought that was interesting and maybe a little bit of sign of trust in his maturity.
I think the one-on-one time that he got with Belmar at the end of practice too. Belmar held court with all of the centers at the end of the session to help give some guidance on faceoffs, but he worked very closely with Ritchie one-on-one at the end as well. And I think that you couldn't learn from a better guy because Belmar is so strong in the faceoff dot.
Yeah, and I think another notable was Ivan jumping into Group 1. You had mentioned early last week that he had a great showing at the rookie showcase, the rookie face-off, and what'd you guys think of his game today? Does he feel like he's starting to show more and more. I mean, it's not glaringly amazing that he's standing out, but it looks like he's kind of inching his way towards standing out.
I love his path. You look at the Logan O'Connor path that he took to an NHL job, and it took a little bit of time. And I think that Ivan's on a similar track, but an expedited one. And so I don't know that I'm having NHL conversations this season, but I'll be having them pretty soon. Like, I could see an NHL debut in Ivan's season ahead. And what I liked about him in these sessions was this fearlessness that he played with in the rookie face-off in the American League last year. But when he's opposite, the Nathan MacKinnons of the world, he doesn't show fear. And I really like that quality about him. And so he is digging deep in, the offensive zone and trying to retrieve pucks and trying to hold on to pucks. And that was maybe a bit of a struggle for him. The puck protection against some of these elite players is a lot more challenging, but he wasn't afraid to go to the dirty areas of the ice. And it's just a scrimmage. Like, it's not even the most physical setting, but I liked the courage that he showed in the face of Nathan MacKinnon's.
But so here's what I will say, though, and we're going to get to where this comment from Jared Bednar is stemming from, but to your point of, if he's willing to do it in a scrimmage at training camp, he's willing to do it in a game, and again, Jared Bednar talked about that with a different player that we will talk about, but like, I'm with you, Megan. Like, I like to see. It hasn't been perfect for Ivan. He hasn't fully separated. I'm with you on. He's definitely, to me, someone that they're going to be at least interested in trying to get into an NHL game. But I liked a lot of the habits. Again, It wasn't perfect. It wasn't great. He wasn't, flashing like crazy. Bye, Chloe.
Bye, Chloe of Guerilla Sports.
Yeah, Guerilla Sports, director of Gen Z. That's what we titled her up today. But I thought he showed really good habits that if you have the courage to show them against Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, on the third day of training camp, then there's no reason to believe that he's not going to be willing to do every last bit of that when he gets into games. And I imagine he's going to be one of the players that gets, I don't know if he'll stay here through the last preseason game necessarily, but he's going to get some looks. Like, he might be one of those guys that plays almost all of the preseason games that he needs. Like, he needs to be getting in those games.
Busy day at the airport today, huh? We transitioned pretty well into the comment you're alluding to from Jared Bednar, because with Ivan today was skating Nikolai Kovalenko, who sounds like he does have a leg up, affirming what we said in yesterday's podcast. Yep. Good job, us.
Everybody, yep.
And centering that line, TJ Tynan. But Kovalenko is kind of the guy I wanted to get into. Jared Bednar had some interesting comments about a guy like that and just simply throwing in some young guys into the fire here. So
yeah, the Kovalenko was the guy that we were all keeping our eye on because he didn't go to the rookie faceoff. I thought that said a lot, that they weren't going to send him there. That to me said that they viewed him as someone who they were expecting to be ready to take on the NHL. Obviously, great player in the KHL the last couple of years, and then he gets thrown right into the playoffs after coming off an injury. Wasn't really a fair evaluation, and so when they didn't send him to that rookie tournament, I took that as this is a guy that they are penciling in for the NHL roster. And I thought yesterday was a really good day for him. I thought today was another really good, really strong day. And the fact that he's starting to string good days together, I think, is really encouraging. And then he sold out to block a shot that looked like it really hurt.
You did that yesterday,
for the second day, yeah.
And again, like, that's just one of those things. It's not that guys aren't trying to get in front of pucks out here. Everyone's out here competing, but man, would it be easy on day 3 of training camp to be like, I'm not getting in front of that. Yeah. I'm going to look at him trying to block it, lift my leg up at the last second, and just let it go by. But he didn't. He sold out, and he is showing this coaching staff, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this roster. And I think that was something that was needed. I've maybe had a bad taste in my mouth ever since Andrei Mironov, which was the last really promising KHL skater to come over and join the Avs. And there's really high expectations. And it just, for a bunch of different reasons, it didn't work out. This does not look like a guy that is going to, just expect a roster spot to be handed to him. I don't think he has much interest in playing in the American Hockey League, but through the last couple of days, he hasn't given any reason as to why he would need to.
No, and I think that's the important point, is because his attitude in talking with his former American League teammates there briefly is so positive. He has such a good relationship with the guys on the ice that he played with the Eagles. So I don't feel there's any sort of ego about this. But Jared Bednar, said it perfectly. Come and earn it.
Yeah.
And I worried that his brief viewing in the playoffs maybe harmed Bednar's view of him. But this type of showing has really helped to rebuild trust. And it is because of his heart and the guts that he's playing with in a scrimmage like this. Even just a heavy forecheck to force a turnover and spring Ross Colton for a goal. And so there's a little production, but there's also those good details and a heavy forecheck in a scrimmage setting, blocking shots, dropping to one knee 2 days in a row. Jared Bednar is noticing and remembering those things. And, he's not without any criticism of any of these players, but I think that he sees the path to working with Kovalenko so much more clearly than some of these other young players.
Well, and just putting a bow on the rookie face-off thing, like, I was even kind of looking at, like, okay, you don't need to be at the rookie face-off, then I expect that you're going to come into camp ready to go and fully ramped up, because that's what that, the 1 day of rookie practice and then the rookie face-off, that is to get those guys ready for main camp, because it is such a big step up from where a lot of them have come from. Even Cal Ritchie, for all the expectations, like, yeah, he was playing juniors, just a few months ago. He didn't get to take part in camp last year, so this was going to be a big step up. I felt like he needed that rookie face-off. And again, so far, through 3 days, Kovalenko has not given me any reason to say he really should have been there. That would have been better for him.
Yeah, I like Meghan bringing up the attitude, because that's really what stands out to me. He's got an amazing attitude. He's got a great head on his shoulders. Obviously comes from a great pedigree, so, he's kind of dialed in on what's expected from a professional at the NHL level. And, I just think, I don't know, we talked about how difficult it is for the structure and for new guys to come in and understand it. It's even harder when English is your second language.
Yeah.
He's going through that extra effort to try to understand what the coaches are telling him. We heard from him yesterday in the interview that Alexander Georgiev
was his translator.
is actually serving as his translator. So, there's a couple extra hurdles that come with him understanding the system and structure, but he's going through those steps. He's doing his best to make sure that he's exactly what the coaches expected. Not having that ego, I think, is huge, and it's apparent, because bringing up Andrei Mironov kind of always dangled that carrot. Oh, I could always go back to the KHL. Kovalenko could easily be doing the same thing, but you don't feel that. You don't sense that whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Hugging on Jason Polin, I thought was a cute moment from practice yesterday. A contrast to some of the other Polin moments we've seen. So it was good to see those two.
I want to talk about the comment that Meghan brought up from Jared Bednar about the come and earn it. I don't know, am I jumping ahead?
Nope.
So this is something that, if you followed my coverage of this team for any amount of time, this is something that I have always circled back to, because even going back to the 2010s, when the Avs were a struggling organization trying to find their way back to competitiveness and to relevancy, and they were drafting high. One, the Avs were graduating a lot of draft picks almost immediately into the NHL, so it felt a little bit like that was a given. That was the way that you did things. And as the Avs have been on this upward trajectory here, I think there's been a lot of times where people have taken it as that there's a reluctance from the Avs to play young guys. They don't want young guys in the lineup. They don't trust young guys in the lineup. And Jared Bednar addressed that pretty head on, not completely unprompted, but he was the one that brought it up. Because it was your question, right? About Belmar?
Yep. Yes.
Meghan, yeah. And one, I think Belmar's looked really good.
Same.
I think he's fit in really well. But your question was about having a guy like that. Can he keep up? And Jared did kind of take the right turn to say, look, there are a lot of people that want to be critical of the fact that, we want to see young guys play young players. And he stopped and he goes, come and earn it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he looks good. Yeah, clearly, I mean, he went to work this summer. It's an Olympic year, Four Nations year. There's Olympic evaluation going on for next year. Last year, a little off year for him. But, all the things that we expect out of Belly from him being here before, and as a veteran guy, he's shown. And he's skating pretty well. He's moving well. We we got a pretty fast group, and it doesn't look like it's too fast for him right now. So I think he's had a good first 3 days. Like, we know some of the things that he brings, plus the intangibles. Yeah, he's going to push for a spot, you know. Like, if you want a spot on this team, regardless of where you were drafted or what your circumstance of being here, I said it before, you're going to have to earn it. You know, I think people that watch our organization or get frustrated that, well, why aren't we giving this kid a chance or that kid a chance? Like, come and earn it. Some of them have been here a year, and some of them have been here 5 years, but like, this is the best league in the world, and if you want to play on one of the best teams in the best league in the world, then you have to expect to earn it, just like our motto in the playoffs. Like, you're going to have to expect to play your best game if you want to win a hockey game in the playoffs, and that's what we're all gearing up to do.
And he went on to make the point of, like, we don't care. The Avs don't care if you're a player trying to hang on like Bellemare is, a young player like Richie trying to come in, a player that's a little bit older than your average rookie like Kovalenko coming from another very good professional league. They expect that you earn it every single day. And he heaped praise onto Kovalenko for the second day in a row and then stopped and said, but in this league, you have to earn it every single day. And I love to hear that, because I just couldn't agree with that more. I don't care if you are Macklin Celebrini, who was first overall, or a player taken in the 4th round, or a veteran like Pierre Bellemare, who's been to the Stanley Cup final twice trying to earn a deal. The NHL is not where you find out what you've got. Those are supposed to be the best players in your organization, and they're there because they show up and put in the work and earn it every single day. And this is to say, I think right now Kovalenko's earning it. And I think that's what's exciting to see about this. Isn't just that he showed up and they're going to give him the spot because he has an AHL out clause in his contract. It's that he's showing up and saying, I have to earn this roster spot, and I'm not just going to do it on the first day of camp. I'm not just going to do it on the second day of camp. I'm not just going to do it on the third day of camp. I'm going to keep building on this because, as Jared Bednar said point blank today, that is what it takes to not only make this team, but in their opinion, to stick in the NHL. And that's why after the first year that Jared Bednar's been here, this has been a playoff team every year, because that's the expectation.
Yeah, you want to come play in the best league on one of the best teams in the best league.
That's what I was going to say. That stood out to me. And it's like, yeah, duh. Why would I, like, not saying duh to Jared Bednar, but like, yeah, why would we think it would be any different? This is the best league in the world, and this is one of the best teams in the best league in the world. You got to bring it. You can't just expect handouts. You can't expect to be given opportunity just because of your name or your draft position, what have you. Very Jared Bednar-esque, I would say, though. It's good to see him sticking to his guns, and that's kind of always the message we've heard from him. But, yeah, I'm with you, Jess.
The layer, too, that I think is most important here is come and earn it and also be what they need. And I think the be what they need is what's most challenging for all of these players. I've often said that I believe Foudy would be in the NHL on a different team. Yeah. And I still believe that. I think that there is a lot of commitment from Richie and Olausson and Foudy, but I don't know if they have fully adopted be what they need in terms of what the Avs need right now. This is where Alex Newhook struggled in this organization specifically. He is absolutely an NHL player, but he struggled to be what Bednar needed of him. And it was a challenge. And so even somebody with the skill upside and the pro polish of Alex Newhook struggled to earn the role that he felt he was built for. And I think that's going to be the struggle for a Richie type that isn't troubling a Kovalenko, because Kovalenko is ready built to be an Avalanche player, and he is so much closer to being what the Avs need right now, whereas Richie, there's still a lot that we don't know, and being an unknown quantity is not a Jared Bednar favorite.
No. Two things came to my mind. One was while Jared Bednar was talking about Kovalenko, and the other just spurred my brain. I'll start with the one that just came to me when you're talking. Does that not, everything you were just saying, go hand in hand with what Brian Wilsey told you last weekend in LA? We are preparing these guys because, hey, you've been a center your whole life? Great. They need to call it for a wing. They don't need a center. Can you go play wing? Can you go play on the fourth line as a winger and still find a way to be effective? That's what they are trying to get these guys prepared for.
It's like what Jared Bednar was saying, I think, yesterday about Logan O'Connor. He thrives in his role. And if we could get everybody to thrive in their role, not necessarily do what you're good at, not necessarily be who you want to be, but do what is being asked of you.
Yes.
That's what we need around here.
And then the other thing that came to me, and this is I'm going to reach back into the throwback grab bag here.
Ah.
Bloom where you're planted. Something that Jared Bednar told me a few years ago.
That Jared Bednar
Bloom
quote.
where you're planted. It's a Jared Bednar philosophy that I talked to him about. I do too. A couple years ago in a one-on-one, and he said that was a philosophy that he actually had one of his American League captains teach him when he was coaching in the American League. You got to bloom where you're planted. There's sometimes you can't do anything about your circumstance, what spot's available, how many guys are in front of you. All you can do is be as good as you can in the position you're in. And if you do that better than anyone else, you are going to get your opportunities. And I thought about that when he was talking about Kovalenko. The bloom where you planted came to mind. And then just, when you were talking about what we were saying about Brian Wilsey and again, being, what did you say that he said about O'Connor?
Thrive in your role.
Thrive in your role. I couldn't think of the right. Thrive in your role. That's a consistent message. Whatever phrase you want to use to describe it, it's a consistent message. Be good at what's being asked of you, not what you want.
And you know what I like is it extends to everyone. Like
Yes.
Val Nichushkin, how he arrived in Colorado is different from how he is now. And okay, that maybe was not the greatest example to lead with.
No,
but we
on
talked about with Lehkonen as well the way that they added both special teams into their repertoire and excelled, and then earned top six opportunity. That wasn't immediately who they were. That was who they needed to become in order to fit in the Avs system. And so these types of demands are being asked of everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you can even draw the parallel to Nathan MacKinnon and his leadership, especially from last year without Gabe Landeskog, how he kind of is trying his hardest to transition into a little bit more of a leader in his own style, but a leader nonetheless.
And not only that, but think about the way that Jared Bednar talks about the way Nathan MacKinnon played on the 2022 Cup run. He wasn't, needing to lead the league in goals and points and all that stuff. He was more concerned about, I have to play a 200-foot game because that's how we're going to be successful. And if I'm not doing that, all the points in the world don't matter.
Right.
And again, he needed him to thrive in that role.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I guess on that same note, thriving in the role, we talked a little bit about the Roaring 20s line.
Yep.
Miles Wood, Logan O'Connor, Ross Colton. Looks like they're playing a little bit better today. I think they even admittedly weren't at their best yesterday. Jared Bednar even commented yesterday about how some guys aren't up to par. I think we know maybe a little more, at least a handful of who he's talking about there.
To the guys who are getting on the ice right now.
They seem to be coming together a little bit.
That was
Roaring
mean.
20s.
Yeah, no. Well, the thing that's sticking out to me, and if you watch any of our interviews yesterday with Logan O'Connor, today with Ross Colton, man, these guys seem close. Like, this seems like a really good group of friends. I think they're excited to have another year together, and I like the fact that Logan O'Connor said yesterday, we did not have a good day on the ice today.
Miles Wood didn't like it. We went and talked to him today. Miles Wood looked over at Logan O'Connor and said, "You told him we were bad yesterday?" And Logan O'Connor's like, "What do you want me to do? Lie? I was just being honest." And so, no, it's funny that Logan O'Connor still kind of playing that little captain role, even just in his little line, in his microcosm. Yeah, is that the right word there?
Yeah.
In his
It's whatever word you want it to be.
microbiome.
What do you think of them today? Did they stand out to you one way or the other?
Yes. And it's the way that they drive pace through their intensity and their energy. It was much more channeled and intentional today. I think that they've just been skidding like, I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of the expression I'm looking
Microbiome.
for. No, they've been skidding like microbiomes all weekend. I'm trying to think of something like their hair is on fire. I can't think of it, what I mean though. But
Bats out of hell, hair on fire.
Something like that. It was more intentional today. And even in like a brief shift that Cal Ritchie was with Colton and Wood, I liked what it brought out of Ritchie. In just terms of the ozone possession was extended just because all of them were working, and I think that the working has been happening this whole time. I just think they were a little bit more focused today, a little bit more unified, maybe is the word I'm looking for.
Good word.
And I really liked what I saw. I'm glad that we'll get another glimpse at it because I don't think we got to see the full potential of this line last year because Miles Wood dealt with injury and illness, and then Logan O'Connor also had the season-ending procedure, and so we didn't get to see it reach its full potential, and I think it's back and better than ever.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think it's the perfect mix of chaos, grit,
and microbiomes
and goals.
I look back to the Devon Taves video from last year where he's calling guys out, and I think we've discussed ad nauseum that those Miles Wood, Ross Colton are kind of involved in that conversation. We knew kind of all year long Jared Bednar was a little bit frustrated with those two in terms of getting a hold of the system. There's still some negativity when it comes to talking about these three guys. Does that at all worry you about specifically Wood and Colton? Or is this just, like Ross Colton said to you, that's what training camp's for, is what preseason's for. We're still ironing it out. But here we are a year later, still kind of trying to get a rhythm there.
I think the way that those two players play, Ross Colton and Miles Wood, I think it's natural that it took them a little while to get caught up on these systems. You know, Corey Masisak from the Denver Post, you know, he had covered Miles Wood in New Jersey. And Corey even talked to me throughout the year, as the year went on and Miles got back from that crazy illness. I forgot he dealt with that.
He lost a ton of weight.
But that, you know, he was saying Miles Wood is a different player. And Corey said it was noticeable. He's a smarter player. He wasn't just out there running into people. I think Ross Colton and Miles Wood, probably on their last teams, were told to go out there and just cause some chaos. Just go, you know, bang bodies and get to the front of the net. Well, that's not what they want out of them here. They want them to bring that element of their game, but it's a lot more cerebral. It's a lot more, you know, systems-oriented, things like that. And I just think that took some time. You had to change elements of the way that those guys played for that to work. And so I think now having the full year, knowing what the expectation is, I'm really anxious to see what that line does, because my expectations for them are elevated a little bit, because I think they should be able to jump right into systems a little bit more this year.
They're maybe on a little bit of a shorter leash, though, than the other line combinations, I feel.
I think, you know, what threatens breaking it up most is the versatility of LOC. It's kind of like, well, we need him here, we need him here, and we need him here. Yeah. So I think that is why it is on a shorter leash. Is there's just so many options where LOC could be and then could go there in his place. Doesn't necessarily mean it's better. And this is where I don't feel we've seen it to its full potential. But if in a longer viewing of them, it just still doesn't pop because it's not enough organized chaos and it's just too much chaos, I can see it being retooled sooner. But to your earlier point about the worry of, you know, is there any lingering funkiness? I'd say no. No one looks like they're having more fun out there than Miles Wood and Ross Colton. Ross Colton has a smile on his face every time I see him playing hockey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Miles Wood in particular. I mean, I feel like even just with us, he's got an extra level of looseness to him. And
more now than last year, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We saw it in glimpses last year. Now he's just happy to be here, kind of just a treat to be around.
I hope it's not a training camp limited thing.
Me too. Yeah. Last conversation I wanted to get to, guys, and then we'll get out of here. Poor Mark's just dying in the heat over here. We're still keeping an eye on the defense, right? Oliver Shillington, we were told, is getting a little bit more flexibility when it comes to his assessment. They're understanding the circumstances. And yeah, it's kind of tough to fully evaluate a player when he's still not quite comfortable. So what are you guys seeing out of defense? Anybody gaining traction in your eyes, or are we still kind of where we were yesterday, where it doesn't really feel like anybody is necessarily getting that leg up like we see Kovalenko doing with the forwards?
I feel for Oliver Shillington. Playing with like a fresh set of gloves is annoying, let alone head-to-toe brand new gear that they just fitted you with when you got to town. Like, there's a lot of these guys that wear stuff that, like, oh, I've worn this since I was 13. You know, elbow pads and shin pads and chest protectors. And
yeah, there are some guys that have brands on some of their gear that just doesn't even exist
anymore.
Don't
exist, right. And so, you know, it's like, that's a real thing. Like, all fresh new gear, that's a real thing. So I'm glad to hear that they're giving him a little bit of grace on that. No one has really separated that hard for me. I think it's exciting that we've got roster battles that we're watching. What have you seen, Megan, for the back end?
I actually feel similar. I don't think someone has come ahead in the way that Kovalenko has within the forward group and how comfortable, and honestly, Belmar in the forward group too. Mm-hmm. I had to second guess how I said it for like a 15th time today. And so there just isn't someone who's emerged quite as strongly. I guess there are still guys though at the top, but they're all kind of in the same tier. The Brandstrom, Shillington, Calvin DeHaan, and Malinsky. And Malinsky's in maybe like a B tier, and they're the A tier.
Okay, you think so?
I thought Malinsky had a better day, for what it's worth, in the scrimmages.
I found something that Kale said interesting.
Tell me.
He said, because I asked him, I've been trying to ask some of the defensemen, this is the most significant shakeup we've seen on the back end in a while. And I asked Kale, I said, maybe even since you've gotten to town, this is probably the most significant change we've seen. How exciting is that? And he said, yeah. And he goes, I think it's great, the guys that we added. And he listed off, DeHaan, Brandstrom, Shillington. And he goes, and then, we've already got Malinsky back there as well. And he added in Malinsky's name as like a yes, and we already know how good that guy is.
Good.
So I just thought it was interesting because when he listed off the three, I took immediate mental note. He didn't mention Malinsky. And then he goes, and on top of that, we've already got Malinsky back there too. And so he almost even kind of said it like, oh, yeah, that's kind of a given that we got Sam. I just thought that was an interesting thing. Maybe I'm reading way too far into it. Kale will listen to this and be like, what an idiot. I just was listing off names. But I thought it was significant that the way that he included Malinsky's name, like, oh, and then you already know about Sam Malinsky being in that mix.
I'm glad to hear it because I did like his day today a little bit better. His defense on players like McKinnon kept them to the perimeter, which is always a challenge to do for a skater like that. And I was glad to see it. And he even had a great offensive opportunity with a wrister in close. He broke away using his speed. And I like to see the power in his skating. You kind of underestimate it because he's got an interesting size. Like, he's undersized for a defender, but he also did get stronger this summer. And I think maybe some of that is what I haven't loved in the first few days is he's getting adjusted to his new body in this setting. And so I think in the scrimmage, it felt like he felt more comfortable in his body. And that's why I liked his day 3 better than I've liked day 1 or 2.
Well, and this was a day where, like we talked about on yesterday's show, some of his strengths were able to show out a little bit more in a setting like
seizing
today.
the offensive opportunity when it presented itself at center ice.
Yep.
Because he does have really powerful speed that kind of sneaks up on you.
Totally.
I'm trying to read into the way they separated the D groups a little bit, right? They had K.O. Makar, Eric Brandstrom, Sam Girard, Manson, and Rosen in one group, whereas the other group was Devon Taves, and then you have Shillington, DeHaan, Malinsky, McDonald. Kind of feels like maybe Brandstrom is up in that group with the mainstays. Meanwhile, they want to see a little bit more out of Shillington, DeHaan, and Malinsky, putting Devon Taves down there and, kind of the leader of the defensive group. I don't know, might be just me reading into nothing, but I like the way they divided up the defensive groups today.
The last 2 days, I didn't look at I didn't put too much weight on how the groups were split up. Today, I think it's significant. I think there is stuff to read into on how these groups are divided.
And it was split up to, just Malinsky was paired with a lot of different people. I can tell they're looking at a lot of options right now. Nothing was totally set in stone with the D pairs.
Yeah. The one constant has been K.O. Makar and Devon Taves will not play with each other all of camp.
That's,
when we know they'll just get glued right next to hip to hip for the rest of the season.
No, exactly. So people are like, is this going to happen? I was like, in game, they will be separated at points.
Yeah.
But they are still a pairing in my eyes.
They're the best pairing in the NHL.
Well, and when things go sour, Jared Bednar's always quick to go right back to what he's comfortable with, right?
Absolutely.
We remember that with the McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen line.
Yeah, it's the best pairing in the NHL. I think it's the best defensive pairing in hockey right now. They should be Canada's top pairing going into next year. Sounds like a big one. Like I said, assuming nothing crazy happens, that will be the starting pair on the best hockey team at the Olympics. So yeah, they'll get back together. They're just good enough that Jared Bednar can split them up and know that they're still going to be effective.
Well, I've liked, Girard, Makar, what they do together. So I think we'll see that in glimpses.
Yep. No, I agree.
Yeah, they've had that quite a lot this training camp so far, those two together.
They had a great play today, too.
They did. Oh, my God.
K.O. Makar's goal.
Beautiful, yes.
Well, I think that's all I have for today.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Smile towards the camera tells me Megan's done. All right.
Microbiome.
Thanks for hanging out with us here in our microbiome. We'll be back. When will we be back?
Monday.
Monday
with a full pod. We'll have another little mini pod signing off for tomorrow.
Game day? Game day Monday pod?
We'll do it. Yeah.
Game day preseason Monday pod.
Game day preseason Monday pod.
On that note, thanks for hanging out with us, guys. For Meghan, Jesse, I'm JJ. This is Guerilla Sports Off Ice.